You know, I've seen a flood of Facebook posts recently regarding the racial issues that we're currently facing in our nation. Posts with words to the effect, and I quote, "If you're not disgusted by the death of this unarmed black man by the name of George Floyd at the hands of police and desperate for a change, then you're a part of the problem." And while I agree with the outrage, what I don't agree with is the blatant accusation leveled toward anyone who doesn't respond with the same level of intensity. Or the accusation that I'm part of the problem if I don't join the protest or post something on social media. So if I didn't post a black square on my social media pages, does that make me a racist? First, let me be clear. It's necessary to voice outrage about the murder of George Floyd. There needs to be justice. It was horrible. But I'm seeing a disparity that I find concerning. Actually, it's a pattern of inconsistency I've seen from many in the church for quite a while. So for example, those Christians so outraged by the injustice of racism that you're moved to shout it from the rooftops, let me ask you, when was the last time you took a stand on social media to express that same outrage regarding 800,000 plus abortions being performed in our nation last year? What about disgust concerning the horrors of that genocide? How about creating a square to post on social media about that? And as a believer, when was the last time that you spoke out about the number of young girls sex trafficked in the U.S.? It's estimated there's about 50,000 of them, and half of those cases involve children. Look, there are many horrible acts of injustice in the world. If you're going to pick one, don't virtue signal by just picking the ones that are culturally popular. And when you do, don't try to convince everyone how courageous you are by speaking out. Don't grab a bullhorn and be deafening in one area of injustice that's culturally popular while being completely silent in those areas that aren't. Be consistent. And here's something even more importantly to think about. According to the scriptures, God has given us the ministry of reconciliation, not the ministry of social justice. And now that's not to say we don't attempt to right society's wrongs. We do, we must. But in our attempt to right the wrongs of society, we need to realize two things. Number one, it's only reconciliation that offers healing. You see, reconciliation by its very nature has to do with the direction of a person's heart toward God. And in the same way, reconciliation between people or people groups has to do more with us than it does with them. So for example, a young girl that's sexually abused, man, there aren't enough I'm sorry's to bring healing from the wounds of abuse to her. Even her abuser's imprisonment, a necessary act of justice, isn't enough. And no matter the injustice, folks, the betrayal, the abuse, there will never be sufficient amends or punishment to bring healing. No matter what one race attempts to do to balance the scales of injustice for another, or one individual attempts to do for another, if it's only justice we're looking for, it'll never be enough. Ultimately, it's healing we need, not real justice. And it's only our reconciliation with God that we discover that healing. And here's the second thing. Because we live in a fallen world, the scales of injustice will never be completely balanced. You know, there's a verse in Revelation, actually it's Revelation chapter 2, that says that God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. That's a beautiful verse. This verse says that the scales of injustice will never be balanced until the end of the age when Jesus makes all things right. Look, our primary call as the church isn't to make the world a better place to live. It's to call men out of the world by reconciling them to God. And the truth is, the gospel is the only message that has the power to change a man's heart and thereby ultimately changing his behavior. Here's the thing. We can't afford to trade the life-changing message of Jesus for the gospel of social justice.